Disgraced Republican Congressman James Comer went on the Fox propaganda network to once again desperately try to sell the merits of the failed Biden impeachment inquiry, even as House Democrats continue to publicly challenge him to investigate the true corrupt White House family, the Trumps. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, it seems again like Republicans just won't let things like, facts or shame get in the way of a good story. And this story is not particularly good, right? We've seen reporting time and time again, even in the past couple of weeks, where an increasing number of Republicans are like, guys, let's just call it a day on the impeachment effort against President Biden. The facts aren't there. We have MAGA cultists like Tommy Lahren and others say, listen, the polling isn't there. This is just dead. It's certainly probably won't make its way past the House. It definitely won't make its way past the Senate. This could politically backfire. But James Comer, I guess because he's afraid he'll lose his 15 minutes of fame, he's still trying. And you can see he's wrestling with himself. It's like, okay, come on. This is the Hail Mary. I want to play a couple of clips from his recent appearance on Sean Hannity's show on the Fox Propaganda Network, and we'll unpack it together.
Look, the Bidens have been investigated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, by the IRS, by the FBI, by multiple U.S. attorneys in multiple districts within the Department of Justice. But yet nothing ever happened.
I wonder why. Right? They've been investigated multiple times, but they've never been convicted of anything. Well, because investigations aren't proof of crimes, right? You have an investigation, then you come to a conclusion about whether or not you prosecute somebody, right? Just because you're investigated doesn't mean you're prosecuted. Trump's been investigated. So by James Comer's logic, all of Donald Trump's prosecutions have been merited because there were investigations which preceded them. See, he's so close to getting the point, but he's just too stupid to quite grasp it. Here's another clip.
Under oath, both Republicans and Democrats. So my understanding is you get an hour each per side, then you go an hour, you switch on and off, correct?
That's correct.
How did that go when Hunter was in there, in your view?
I think it went great. You know, the Republicans, we went the first hour. We asked a lot of questions in that first hour, substantive.
He's still trying to convince people that the closed-door deposition of Hunter Biden went great. Again, the polls show that that's not the case. Other Republicans have publicly admitted that it did not go great for them. It's a consensus. So Comer he's just flying in the face of widespread consensus, even from his own party. And then this is the final clip from Hannity, in which, again, Comer tries to make the case that, if anything, Democrats embarrassed themselves during the Hunter Biden deposition.
We got him on record. I'm not going to say yet whether or not we believe the truthfulness of what he said about some of the transactions and some of the wires and some of the sources of the money. But we did that, and that's what a deposition's all about. Then the Democrats had an hour, and they only took 20 minutes of their hour, and they were telling him how proud they were of him, that he overcame his drug addiction and all that. I mean, it was embarrassing how the Democrats treated him. They're not serious about an investigation. They're not serious about preventing influence peddling. They're not serious about holding one accountable.
Not serious about influence peddling. Not serious about holding anyone accountable. Interesting. Here's a Democrat, Garcia. This is what he has to say about influence peddling and holding people accountable.
No family in history has ever benefited more than the Trumps and the Kushners. And I actually want to talk about Jared over here especially, his son-in-law. His son-in-law was brought in to run Middle East policy at the start of the Trump White House. By the way, having zero experience in doing that work, and against the objections of his Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson. Trump and Kushner, of course, made their first state visit to Saudi Arabia, overruling the State Department. This is at the same time, by the way, that Jared was actually putting together a $110 billion arms deal for the Saudis. But what was happening during that time? The Saudis were paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in room stays and foreign gifts that were illegal under the Constitution back into the Trump organization. Over and over, through hotels and properties, these shady investments by the president, his sons, and his son-in-law, who was an employee of the White House, all worked to enrich the Trump family and Donald Trump himself. And the insane part is that just months after leaving the White House, Jared Kushner received a $2 billion with a B investment fund from the Saudis to manage and being paid directly as well out of that fund that the Saudi government organized. I want to just mention also that our chairman also said, and I quote, that this crossed the line of ethics, end quote. So why have we not investigated the Trump crime family and the current and ongoing abuse by Jared Kushner as a government official? And I remind folks, Hunter actually never worked for the government. He was a private citizen.
Again, phenomenal point. Just by any objective metric, what Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump and Donald Trump may be guilty of, and perhaps they're not, but what they may be guilty of is infinitely objectively orders of magnitude worse when you consider that Jared Kushner was in the White House, Hunter Biden was not, Donald Trump was president when all of these shady deals occurred, Joe Biden was neither president nor vice president, and then the orders of magnitudes of disagreement or discrepancy between the money. So right now, Republicans are saying things like Hunter Biden made millions of dollars off his father's name. Well, Jared Kushner would have made billions off of Donald Trump's name in association with that, with a $2 billion investment. Then again, of course, in direct payments as well. So at least the predicate is there, and it looks a hell of a lot worse for the Trumps and the Kushners. And again, as Garcia points out, James Comer, and we covered this in a previous video, it was a year ago, when he was cornered on this, he was like, well, yeah, it looks kind of shady. It looks like it crossed the line of ethics. But then Comer dropped any sort of inquiry into this, which, by the way, Democrats were looking into this when they had the majority. We'll come back to that in a minute, because I do think they mishandled some parts of this. I'll get into why. And then as soon as Comer takes the majority, the Republicans take the majority, they kill that investigation into the Trumps and the Kushners, even though it was in its effective infancy, because they're not interested in stopping influence peddling or holding people accountable. They're fine with it. They encourage it as long as it's Republicans, and then they will manufacture claims of influence peddling and conspiracy theory against Democrats. And then even more hilariously, you have Jim Jordan, the other grand inquisitor in the Biden witch hunt. This is what he had to say about Jared Kushner and that super sketchy arrangement that Kushner and Trump had regarding the Saudis.
At one point, Hunter said or testified or spoke to you about something that, hey, Jared Kushner, the President Trump's son-in-law, had more dealings with foreign governments than I did. And Dan Goldman, I don't think we have the soundbite queued up, but I think Dan Goldman came out and said, oh, yeah, Hunter had nothing to do with foreign governments, but Jared Kushner did. That narrative come up?
Again, I'm not going to get into what came up in this interview today, this deposition, but the idea that Jared Kushner did something wrong is ridiculous. I mean, the Trump family that has been investigated more than any family on the planet, and what they've attempted to do to President Trump and been doing to President Trump over the last 7 years is unbelievable. So again, I don't want to get into that, but I will say this.
So again, he doesn't even offer any reasons as to why what Jared Kushner did wasn't wrong. He just says it dogmatically, and then says, well, Trump's been investigated a lot. Yeah, and again, there was an investigation into Kushner's sketchy deals under House Democrats, which you all killed when you all took the House majority. So again, they obviously know they don't have a winning argument here, that they lose on the substance. But I just love that. It's so funny to me that the shameless, naked hypocrisy and partisanship, the likes of which you simply do not see on the Democratic side. This is once again a uniquely Republican issue. Only time will tell if Jordan and Comer have the wherewithal and the sensibility to let this impeachment effort against President Biden die, or again, if they'll try to drag it out, and just let it limp along in the vain hopes that they can weaponize it politically. Although I think that will backfire. And again, hopefully, Democrats make them pay an extraordinary political price during the election. They should use this as a cudgel. Say, this is what Republicans have been focusing on. And then the last thing I'll say in terms of criticizing my beloved Democrats, they should have been louder about investigating Jared Kushner when they had the majority in 2020. During the first 2 years of President Biden's administration. They should have done to Jared Kushner and with Jared Kushner's investigation what Republicans are trying to do to Hunter Biden and President Biden, because at least there's substance to what's going on with the Trumps and the Kushners, as opposed to the Bidens. Once again, Democrats, unfortunately, are too serious. I understand wanting to engage on the substance, and they should, but then they should also engage in the pomp and the circumstance and the theater as well, because perception is reality, and the American people need to be confronted again and again and again and again and again about the unparalleled corruption of the Trump and Kushner family. And so if and when Democrats retake the majority, they should investigate Donald Trump and the Kushners, and they should be loud about it. They should talk about it all the time, and they should basically use the Republicans' playbook against them, because the Republicans richly deserve it. Let me know what you think in the comments.